I'm Mary Parker, and welcome to this episode of Eureka's Sounds of Science. People go into medicine for a lot of reasons, and sometimes it's because of a formative medical experience during childhood. Marcus Gerald, a senior scientific associate who works at our Horsham, Pennsylvania site, is one of those people. At a young age, he experienced firsthand what it feels like to be a patient, and that experience affected his education and career as an adult. He joins us to tell his story, as well as to discuss the challenges facing Black men who go into STEM fields. Welcome, Marcus.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So, first off, can you tell me about your current job? Like, what kind of research do you do?
Sure. So I'm a study director at Charles River Labs in Horsham, Pennsylvania. I work specifically in developmental and reproductive toxicology, or DART, as well as juvenile toxicology. And essentially, what we test drugs that are developed by different pharmaceutical companies, and we're determining their safety. So we want to know, one, are they safe for pregnant women? Women who are, currently pregnant, and as well as the developing fetus. Are they safe for women who might be nursing? Are they safe for men and women who are looking to conceive soon? Or is it safe for children? So a company may want to repurpose a drug they currently have, use it for juveniles, and we would do the testing to make sure that that can happen. To do this, we use several study designs. We have an embryo fetal development studies. We have fertility studies, pre and postnatal studies, as well as juvenile toxicity studies.
All right. Do you have like an example of some of your work that you can tell us about?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So we work on a wide array of drugs we have different COVID vaccines that came through Charles River Horsham. Me personally, I worked on a COVID treatment. It was a drug that was being repurposed from a different disease that they were trying to see if it had any efficacy in COVID. We also are working with a wide list of different vaccines, as well as one interesting test article I recently had was cocaine hydrochloride, and they're trying to determine if it could be used for nasal surgeries as a numbing agent. So
Oh, wow.
we have cancer drugs, we have drugs for developmental disorders. So there are a lot of different drugs that we get to work with, and it's very interesting and very fulfilling.
And the whole point is to make sure that it's okay for pregnant women, kids, basically anybody who's not a young, perfectly healthy adult with no comorbidities, that sort of thing.
Exactly. And to
Yeah.
do this, what we do is we would use pregnant animals, and we would treat them with the test article that the company has developed. And we would look at its effects on the mother, as well as the effects on the fetus as it grows and develops inside the mom.
Mhm.
We would also do studies where we'll look at, how the test article might affect sperm development and morphology in the male, as well as estrus and mating in the female, as well as their ability to conceive.
Mhm.
And we'll look at the offspring from them conceiving, and do they have any developmental issues, any malformations or variations. So we're really just trying to determine if, one, the drug is safe for the mom,
Mhm.
if it's safe for the dad also, or if it's safe for the developing fetus, and in some cases the juvenile.
Can you tell me about your own patient experiences as a kid?
Yeah, so as a kid, I had a disorder that they couldn't really quite figure out all the way, and one of the things we had to do to try to understand more about it was visit a neurologist. And by no means was it a debilitating, disorder or anything. I was able to function, normally every day. It was just something small. It would cause, like, I would have like muscle spasms every now and then,
Mhm.
and under certain situations. So again, we went to a neurologist, and at my time at visiting this doctor, I would always just look at the posters on the wall, and read the literature, and just read about kids with epilepsy and kids who had these disorders that were far worse than what I was dealing with. And to me, it just really impacted me to see these kids firsthand, and to see these kids who were impacted at for no fault of their own. They're just born this way, and I just always wanted to try to help them some way, somehow. As a kid, you want to help everybody you can sometimes. And for me,
Yeah.
seeing that right then and there, and it just stuck with me.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I mean, it seems pretty obvious, but can you explain from there how that experience affected your interests in school?
Yeah, it's crazy because from that moment, I just decided, well, you know what, I'm going to be a doctor. I just said it, and it stuck. My mom handed me a few books. I read them, and I learned, all right, if you want to be a doctor, you need to focus on biology or the sciences. And I just did that. So from middle school on through high school, I just was overly interested in biology, anything that had to do with science, any science fair. So I just really tried to put myself out there, and just follow the path that would eventually get me to pre med, is what I thought I wanted to do at the time.
Did you have cool teachers in high school that were helpful?
Yes, I had very cool teachers, and in my high school, it was a really good high school for a number of reasons. They made sure that we knew who we were. Growing up in the African American community, it was
Hmm.
very important that culture was emphasized and where we come from, and that was something that my high school did a very good job at. We had very good teachers, very knowledgeable teachers, but at the same time, it, everything wasn't great.
Yeah.
Sometimes there were situations where, for instance, I would take a AP biology course or AP chemistry course, right, and get an A+ in the course, but we wouldn't be able to necessarily get the credits from the AP exam. So there was some disconnect there with the education that was being delivered. But my teachers were great, and I did have a great high school experience.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the bureaucracy fails people. That's
Yes.
definitely true. So, what was it like for you when you transitioned from high school to college?
When I transitioned from high school to college, it was very good for me. I mean, just to give you a little background, so there was a recruiter who came to my high school, and he was recruiting for this pre-medical pre-dental plus program at Seton Hall. And it was very interesting because just a few months earlier, my mom had handed me another book called The Pact, and it was about three black men, one of them who was from my city,
Hmm.
who made a pact to one day grow together and become doctors. And they did that, and on their journey to do that, they all made a stop at Seton Hall and joined this program. So it just seemed like, wow, like how's everything's just falling in line. So I spoke to the recruiter,
Yeah, yeah.
and I ended up deciding at that moment I was going to go to Seton Hall. So then I did some more research, joined some other programs, and to be honest, for me, my college experience, I had a lot of support. I was very lucky to one, meet that recruiter, meet the people I met, join the different programs I joined. I ended up getting a full scholarship to Seton Hall because of this other program I joined called Martin Luther King Scholarship Association.
Hmm.
And from there, between that program and then the pre-medical pre-dental plus program, I was able to join internships. I was able to do a bunch of different pre-med experiences that I wouldn't have been exposed to. So my college experience overall was very good, but coming into my freshman year, there were a lot of challenges.
Hmm.
And those particular challenges, again, they kind of related to those things I spoke about in high school, right? So I'm coming out of high school, and I'm top of the class. Now I have a full scholarship to Seton Hall. I'm thinking that things are going to go okay. And for that pre med program, we had this 6-week summer course before our start of our freshman year, where we took math courses, we took a biology course, chemistry course, and you know, I thought everything would go well. And then the first day of class, they would ask some questions, and I just noticed that all of my peers, they just would raise their hand really quick, and I'm sitting here still writing, still trying to figure out the question. I'm like, what is going on here? Somebody didn't tell me
Yeah.
something, So at that moment, I realized, all right, you know, while I did good in high school, and I feel like I was smart, but I needed to do extra work. I wasn't on these other kids' level, and that was okay with me. I just had to accept it at that moment and realize, all right, yeah, it's going to take some extra work for you to get where they are, and I sought that out. I sought out the help I needed, and it was there for me. So again, I was very fortunate to have all of the resources from those two programs and from Seton Hall, to make sure that I was successful. And yeah, things worked out for the better.
Yeah, I had a friend in high school who the high school that we went to, or that was the town's high school, wasn't that great, and he was super smart and ended up getting a full scholarship to a really top school, and then getting there and realizing, like, he just didn't know how to study. Like,
Yes,
he just hadn't been taught how to just sit down and study for an exam. It just wasn't something that we were really taught.
exactly.
Yeah, so I can totally see that. Can you tell me about Seton Hall? I haven't heard of it.
So Seton Hall is a private college in South Orange, New Jersey. We have a very big business school as well as the nursing school. It's a very, it's a, again, private campus. It's a gated community, like I said, in South Orange. But again, very small. It's mostly a commuter school. So most of the people who did go there were people who, drove from, surrounding towns and came in. But I did stay on campus all 4 years. I had a great time there. Like I said, I joined two programs. As far as, academic programs, I was able to join a fraternity. I was able to join,
Mhm.
other groups, and it was a very good time. I had a very good time there, and it was also very challenging. It was so different from where I grew up. I mean, I grew up in a town where there was all African American people. We were all black, and when I got to Seton Hall, it was very few black people on campus, so it was an adjustment, but at the same time, I was treated well, and it was a good experience for me.
That's really great. So, but what do you think could have helped you in college, like, kind of in hindsight?
What could have helped me? I think that it's very important. Like I said, again, I think I was one of the fortunate ones that I was able to recognize my limitations very early on, and in recognizing those limitations, I was also surrounded with the support to help me address them. So I was very lucky, but it was times where I was very hard on myself But if I could say what helped me in college, or what would have helped me in college, I would say if they put an emphasis on professions outside of being a medical doctor. So if I could go back to those programs that I told you that I joined, I was able to do 2 summer courses. So after my freshman summer, I went to Columbia University for a program that was called SMDEP. It was a summer medical dental educational program. And what we did was we took some courses that we were going to be taking the next year, our sophomore year. So we took organic chemistry, some more advanced biology classes, and some calculus classes. So, and then in addition to that, we also were able to shadow different doctors at Columbia, or I was able to shadow a surgeon at Harlem Hospital. So it was really, we were able to hang out with the med students for about 6 weeks. We lived on campus in Washington Heights. So it was a really good experience. But I noticed that when I was in the hospital and when I was shadowing the doctors, that I just didn't, it wasn't there. It was something about being in the hospital that I just couldn't really stomach. I didn't
Hmm.
had I guess I was too impacted by what I saw, too impacted by seeing people who were sick, seeing people who may not be here at any moment. For me, that was just a really emotional experience, and it wasn't something that I could really see myself doing on the daily. And then again,
Yeah.
if you go back, my main motivation was to always work with kids. So now if we're working with sick kids and seeing sick kids every day, I'm like, goodness, Marcus, like, can you really handle this? So I completed the program. I stayed on my pre-med course, and then the following summer I did another summer program. And again, all of these programs that I did were because I joined that pre-medical pre-dental plus program, and they were able to expose me to these different internships and opportunities. So again, the following summer, I went to a program at Robert Wood Johnson. It was the medical school at Rutgers. It's called the Biomedical Careers Program, BCP. And again, it's the same thing. We took courses, and I did real good in the coursework. That was never an issue. But when it came time to do the shadowing again and to actually get in the hospital, it just, shadowing surgeons, it just, for me, I didn't think it was a good fit. So
Hmm.
when I returned to school the following year, I joined a research lab for one of my biology teachers. And Dr. Klaus, she was able to show me a side of biology till that point, my junior year, that I had never known about. And this kind of goes back to your question of what could have helped me in college. It was a long, road to get there. But essentially, if I think being exposed to careers outside of the medical field, before I got to college, the only way I thought I could help those kids that I saw was to be a medical doctor.
Hmm.
It was to go to med school, but I realized that there were other routes, and other routes where I could even probably be more impactful, where I can do the work behind what the doctors are applying, where I could do the research that's maybe one day going to really help these kids. So
Yeah.
through I don't want to say failures, but through my experiences and realizing and learning about myself and understanding that maybe medicine wasn't for me, maybe being in the hospital and working with sick kids wasn't for me, I was able to find that this whole world of research, and it was very, very cool. But had I known that going into college, maybe I could have spent more time learning more about that. But again, I guess you have to experience some things to kind of know what it is you really want. So I don't regret any
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah. I was talking about this with another couple of people on another podcast, and the idea that when you come from, like, say, an area where you don't maybe have a lot of scientists in your immediate circle, your parents aren't scientists, their friends aren't scientists, it can be, and you want to be a scientist, it can be
Yes.
difficult to kind of picture what that is beyond being a doctor or a professor, because those
Yeah.
are what
A
you
teacher.
see.
Exactly. That's it.
Yeah. You don't really see people working in labs or, working just in the industry
Hmm.
as much.
Oh yeah. I mean, and that's a whole other thing, right? Because once I learned about the lab and research, at that point, I'm like, okay, well, now I'm going to be a research scientist. Now I guess I need to be a professor. I guess I need to
Yeah,
be my
yeah,
own lab.
exactly.
So it's another step beyond that, because now I knew nothing about the industry. I knew nothing about being a study director. I mean, it it took a whole PhD and a master's degree before I ever learned about what a study director was, or that this position existed. So
Yeah.
yeah, if I could, if there could have been some exposure to this field and in the industry, and things outside of being actual MD, that would have been very helpful.
Mhm. Yeah, it's really crazy to think about it, because when you do stop and think about it, obviously there's a whole range of jobs between early research, discovering stuff, and
Yes.
then late, like, say, safety testing to make sure that already approved drugs are still safe and non-toxic. So it's like that it's a, you know, thousands of people in between there, but we only see, like, the doctor, the professor,
Hmm.
the drug manufacturer maybe. It's like
Yeah.
all the rest are kind of just opaque, which is interesting.
That's very true. That's very true. And then I think more work is being done. And, that's kind of something that does motivate me. Try to expose that, you don't have to necessarily go into medical school or go into the medical field
Mhm.
to have an impact if you love biology. And I think that's something that a lot of kids need to know, especially ones in inner city communities who might not be exposed to any of this at all.
Do you feel any kind of, personal responsibility for sharing your story or talking to kids who are like you or like you were younger and just showing them what the sort of things that can be possible?
Very much so. Overwhelming responsibility, actually. I feel like for me, had I been, and I don't want to keep saying had I been, because there were opportunities and I was exposed to a lot of things growing up. Like I said,
Sure,
my
yeah.
town was very good at, making sure we got culture and we were able to see, people who were in good positions and who also looked like us. So there was that, but it just didn't go deep into the sciences, I guess you could say, right? So
Mhm.
I do feel an obligation to get out there and show kids and speak to kids and let them know, like, there are things that you can do, and if you want to be a doctor, please go for that and expose yourself to that and try that. But there are a plethora of abundance of jobs you can look towards, careers you can, pursue in biology.
Mhm. If you were giving advice to someone who was like you entering college, with similar background, what kind of stuff would you tell them? What do you wish you had known in hindsight?
Well, I could tell you what I would tell them, and I could tell you what I wish I had known. What I would tell them is to is to surround yourself with people smarter than you, and that's something that I I did at no shame. First of all, I sat at the front of every class. I never, if I had a question, I never ever had a problem raising my hand in front of 110 students if it was a question that people might never be afraid to ask the questions you need to ask, because one, those other students, they may be afraid to ask that question, and while you think it's
Exactly.
you may
Yep.
think it's you may think it's a a simple question, or I don't want to say a dumb question, but something that you missed. It's okay to say I might have missed this. You might have you might have already said this, but I was wondering, so it was a lot of that. But again, surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. I was always trying to just see what it was that they saw that I didn't see how they could help me. I always was joining study groups of people who where I would just just way smarter than me. They just they just got it. But eventually it rubbed off on me, and I adopted their habits. I learned how they studied. I learned how they looked at things, how they took notes. And after a while, I didn't necessarily, I kept studying with them, but I didn't need it. I learned how to study on my own eventually, to the point where I was able to, to hold my own and get, really good grades in all these courses. But I had to see what the kids who are doing good, how were they doing it? So surround yourself with people who are going to help you, not just people you're going to have fun with. And that you need that too. And that's something else I would emphasize. But as far as what I would definitely tell you, surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, or who people you just admire in that way, people who impress you, academically. But then the thing that I would say that I wish I had known was to just find balance and not let fear shape every move. For me, I was always motivated by fear, the fear of failure, the fear of, like I said,
Mhm.
this whole idea of wanting to be a doctor. This started very, very early on, right? And
Mhm.
when you're 13, maybe even 10 years old, and you're telling your family you want to be a doctor, and you're always saying that, they start to. I have a huge family, so they're always, oh, hey, doc, oh, doctor, so it becomes a reality. And then after a while, you're like, well, if I don't follow through on this, then so you start it's fear. So I was just motivated by fear, and I shouldn't have done that. I should have had more confidence in my preparation, just been confident in what I was doing, and not always be so hard on myself. So just I would say, if there was something I could do, I would just, if I prepared, if I studied, just be confident in what I was doing and not to overstudy, because people do that. Sometimes, you're studying
Mhm.
so long and you're not getting anything. You're just trying to put in more time to say, look, I did this,
Right.
But if you do it right and you find people who have good habits, do it the right way. They're not studying all night, they're doing it the right way. So
Mhm.
I would say I wish that I had, one, not necessarily let fear motivate me, and had more confidence in myself and understood that if I prepared for this, then, I'm probably going to do okay. And then had I known that, I probably would have gone out there more, done more things, had more of a life balance in college. And again, I don't regret anything, because I feel like I did what I had to do to get where I'm at. But I do feel like there were some opportunities where I could have maybe gone out or maybe done some other things, because but because of the fear,
Mhm.
oh, I got this exam coming up, I didn't do those things. So I would say just have a balance and have confidence in your preparation.
Yeah, I think that's really fair. And to your point earlier, I think that admitting that you don't know something and asking questions is kind of a skill that we are losing somewhat
Yes.
in some ways. Telling people you don't actually need to have a expert opinion on everything. You
I've always one thing I've always told people is I never want to be somebody. People they see, I got my PhD, I got my master's. Oh, you're a scientist. They think you're so smart, but I tell them it's not that I'm smart. It's not that I know all these things, but I will do anything I need to do to find that answer. So if you ask me something, no, I might not have the answer, and I'll tell you I don't know, but I can find it out. And that's one thing,
Hmm.
we're professional learners. We're always able to learn, able to research, able to find information, able to understand things, break things down, and then hopefully teach it to someone else. So yeah, knowing everything is very overrated, but being able to ask the right people, know who to ask, know where to find information, that's the skill. That's essential.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my friend in college, he eventually learned it. He doesn't need to know the answers. He just needs to know who to ask and how to find out.
Exactly.
That's what's way more important than memorizing everything.
Exactly. But it doesn't hurt to know the answers.
Yeah. And honestly, if only the smartest people in each college class ended up going on to be scientists, then we would have a very
Very
limited range of scientists
Yep.
who all kind of had the same ideas, and that's not good for science, frankly.
Nope. I could totally picture what you're talking about right now, and
Yeah, yeah.
it wouldn't be good for science, and nor would it be fun.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Diversity is important. I mean,
It is, yes.
not just from a moral standpoint, but literally from a scientific standpoint.
Yes.
You need a broad range of ideas. So, who are some speaking of which, who are some of your scientific heroes?
Some of my scientific heroes. So growing up, Charles R. Drew was always one of my heroes, and he was also a member of my fraternity that I joined in college. So I love Charles R. Drew. Also, and I
Mhm.
don't well, Charles R. Drew. He was the man who invented the blood transfusion, and unfortunately, he died. And as his death was a result of him not being able to get the blood transfusion that he helped discover. Right. So it's a very sad story.
Right, didn't he work during, world one of the world wars,
World
and
War
he
II. Yes.
discovered blood typing? Yeah,
Exactly. Yep.
saved a lot of lives during World War
Saved a
II.
lot of
Yeah.
lives. Yes, but unfortunately, couldn't save his own. But
Mhm,
yeah. Then also Dr. Ernest Everett Just. He's was a marine biologist, also one of the founders of my fraternity. And then my last scientific hero, I don't shout him out a lot, but I'm gonna give him his props because he is the reason why I chose the career I did, and that's Dr. Ben
mhm,
Carson.
mhm,
So a lot of people may know Dr. Ben Carson because of his associations with Donald Trump and all these things that he's currently doing. But I know Dr. Ben Carson from the book Gifted Hands. That was the book that was handed to me at a very young age, and I just saw so much of myself in him.
mhm,
And he was the neurosurgeon. He was just the guy. He's a black guy, Christian, and it was amazing. So he was my hero. I don't want to say he's not anymore because of the decisions he made later on in his career, but yeah,
mhm.
a lot of what he did and a lot of what he wrote was why I am where I am today.
I mean, yeah, it's a complicated subject, but what matters is inspiring people
Yeah,
to, do the kinds of work that you're doing now. I mean, you might not have become a pediatrician, but you're still helping children.
exactly.
So, yeah. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Marcus. I will delete the part where I yelled at my cat, but other than that, this has been a really interesting discussion. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to tell my story. It was really fun.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.